Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We are reading today from 4th Canto, Before I get started, I'd like to send a shout out to Jagadish Prabhu and his family for sponsoring a new webcam. That hopefully the audio and visual is better for everyone, and please bless them and their family forevermore.
They can see Krishna better.
Yeah.
Help us hear.
Also, opening our eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. The torchlight of Logitech. So today we're continuing our journey through the fourth canto, chapter 26. And the text we will be reading is 9 through 14. So I've included a link if anyone would like to follow along. It's 9 through 14, so it's a hefty chunk. So I'm not going to read all of the purports, but we'll hop around a little bit here and extract what we can with the time that we have. So text 9. When King Puranjana, did I do Om Namo? Yeah, I did. Okay. When King Puranjana was hunting in this way, many animals within the forest lost their lives with great pain, being pierced by the sharp arrowheads. Upon seeing these devastating, ghastly activities performed by the king, all the people who were merciful by nature became very unhappy. Such merciful persons could not tolerate seeing all this killing. Trying to think if we should read through all the texts and go back, or go text by text. Probably just text by text, so we can keep it on theme. So, Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he discusses how in the modern age, the demoniac civilizations, which are pretty much all of them, so-called civilizations with so-called culture, and the culture being a culture that is very much disturbing to someone of peaceful mind, to someone who sees things as they are, who understands that that we're all parts and parcels of God, we're all parts and parcels of Krishna, and we all have an inherent relationship with Krishna, and we all have a relationship with one another through that relationship. So to see ghastly activities, devastating activities caused by demoniac people is very disturbing for someone who has that transcendental vision. It's uncomfortable, to say the very least. And we can become tricked, actually, in the guise of it being something pious, being something spiritual, even. Prabhupada mentions also that there are rascal swamis, which is a term most are familiar with, but a rascal teacher, a guru, yogi, someone who's training others how to practice yoga, which is actually yoga and religion both have the same root of connection, and so in the guise of being something spiritual, they'll justify all kinds of things. Prabhupada mentions that and we see it. We see different personalities who present themselves very spiritual, have a thank you, Prabhu, who have quite the following, and yet they condone meat eating. Prabhupada mentions later in the purport, he talks about how Lord Buddha, he says, not only are saintly persons affected by this killing, but even God himself is afflicted. And he says, and therefore comes down in the incarnation of Buddha. So even Krishna, he's disturbed by this. And we see, despite that so-called followers of Buddha, they're not even following the most basic tenet in terms of ahimsa, under the guise of detachment. It's an unfortunate situation, and it can become very easy as devotees to lump things together and just cast it away, or to prop ourselves on some platform of being better than others. But we should actually understand things the way they are, and in terms of our good fortune of having access to, if not a softened heart, to have these types of ghastly and devastating activities disturb us, at least having access to people who do, at least having access to people who are disturbed by that. And so I don't want to focus too much on the Dalai Lama, for instance, but he is one example of that, where because in claiming detachment, in terms of, if they bring me chicken, I'll eat chicken. If they bring me fish, I'll eat fish.
He'll eat beef also.
He'll eat beef also. Then he'll eat all kinds of abominable things, and he's leading millions of people. Maybe even, I don't even, maybe not more than millions, but a lot of people.
Leading is a funny. I mean, there's probably billions that admire him.
I mean, they admire, and they're definitely looking to him to set the precedent.
Yeah.
And when that precedent is, when that sensitivity isn't there, that merciful nature, then things just get way off track. Yeah. So Prabhupada says the devotees are pained to see the hunting and killing of animals in the forest, the wholesale slaughter of animals in the slaughterhouses, and the exploitation of young girls in brothels that function under different names as clubs and societies. So what should we do with it? Because we do, like I said, to some extent we do have this sensitivity. Like we're here, we're dedicating time, we're listening to Bhagavatam class, we're trying to absorb ourselves in hearing and chanting. So what do we do with that? Should we join PETA? Like, is that our program? Like, Prabhupada also covers that in the purport. He says, he goes on to, maybe it's in the next purport, but he goes on to note that that the devotee, their focus, we'll cover that soon, but that the devotee, their response is to provide actual knowledge, to provide Krishna consciousness, because that is the antidote to a stone-like heart, which Prabhupada talks about in the purport here. He says the killers of animals are stone-hearted. He says that the people try to accuse animals of they try to rationalize it, that there's no sin in killing the animal because they are dead like stone. But Prabhupada flips it and says actually they are stone-hearted, the killers of animals. So we'll continue. We have a number of texts to get through. but we'll kind of circle around these points today. In this way, King Puranjana killed many animals, including rabbits, boars, buffalo, bison, black deer, porcupines, and other game animals. After killing and killing, the king became tired. And the Purport Prabhupada mentions how a person in the mode of ignorance is commits many sinful activities. It's something that that goes hand in hand, so to speak. One who is sinful activities means to be in the mode of ignorance. Like you can commit sinful activities in other modes, but that being very much the root of it. And that the resultant effect of sinful life is suffering. And that there are consequences. Prabhupada gives the example of a child. Even if they don't know the reaction to those activities, that there is reaction. Prabhupada mentions that a child touching fire, even without knowing the effect, he must be burned. Even though he is only a child, if the child violates the laws of nature, there is no compassion. He says, only through ignorance does a person violate the laws of nature. And when he comes to knowledge, he does not commit any more sinful activities. So that being our point, we want to bring people to knowledge. We want to bring them, guide them, give them the opportunity to take up real knowledge within Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada says, however sinful a man may be, if he receives from the proper spiritual master, if he receives knowledge from the proper spiritual master and repents his past activities in his sinful life and stops them, he immediately becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead. This is made possible just by following the rules and regulations given by the Shastra and following the bona fide spiritual master. He says, people take advantage of this Krishna consciousness movement and leave their troublesome life of killing. It is said that the killers of animals should neither live nor die, which, if you haven't heard that before, sounds pretty extreme. Like typically, like when you like curse someone, you're like, go to hell, but to tell someone that they should neither live nor die is like a pretty extreme thing. And there's a story connected with it. So if you all are ready for story time, many of you have heard it before, but it goes a little something like this. So there is a great sage, a very qualified person who is being approached by several different personalities for blessings. And the blessings are a saintly person isn't just going to give their blessings. It's going to be very customized to the individual. One instance of that, one of my dear friends was going to Giriraj Swami at one point and asking for blessings to go to India. And I was thinking, I was a newer bhakta. I was like, India is spiritual. Of course he's going to give his blessings. So I listened in to see that the blessings be, bestowed upon. And they had a 20 or 30-minute conversation. Maharaj didn't just give his blessings. He wanted to know where the devotee was going, who he was going with, how long he was staying, what his intentions were. Like, he just went really unraveled the thing so that he could he could understand whether encouraging in that way was appropriate. So similarly, in this story, Prabhupada told many times, there was a prince who was seeking blessings from a sage. There was a brahmachari, a devotee, and a butcher. So the prince goes, and very much with the intention for sense gratification. He wanted to extract as much material enjoyment as he could out of life. He goes to the sage and seeks his blessings. The sage blesses him that may you live long forever. May you live a long life. For the brahmachari, may you die immediately. For the devotee, may you live or die as you please. And the butcher, may you neither live nor die. So how do we understand this? The prince who was really in it just for material and enjoyment, he was seeking the blessings to get juiced up for sense gratification. He had a horrible destination awaiting him in the next life. He was going to enjoy like a dog, and in his next life likely become one. So living a long life, at least there was some scope for him getting exposure and taking up Krishna consciousness seriously. Because if he's going to die now in dog consciousness, dog, he'll be barking in no time, or whatever, pigeon, or however. There's, if you're trying to enjoy sex life with a human form of life, there's a lot better facility within the animal kingdom for that. Because you look, dogs are having sex in the streets. The pigeons, I think it's like
30 times a day.
30 times a day. It's something crazy. It's like 8 times an hour or something like that. Like they literally they're just rolling with it. So the prince, may you live a long life. The brahmachari, may you die immediately. His focus was very much to make a significant jump in terms of he's performing austerities, and he's in the prime of his life, so to speak, in terms of that. Like he on his path there could be so many things that could go wrong that would stray him from that level of benefit from the austerities that he's performing. Better you die now so that you can keep what you're investing into. For the devotee, may you live or die as you please. Because for the devotee, it's all about serving Krishna, and whether it's here or there, in this body or another body, in Ypsilanti or Goloka Vrindavan, we just want to be with Krishna and contribute to his happiness. So, as you please. For the butcher, may you neither die nor live, because both are hell. In this life, it's hell. He's just suffering like anything. And in his next life, my God, I mean, I forget the exact, but in terms of harming animals, what to speak of a cow, the results are very, it's not good. It's for every hair on the body of a cow, it's very devastating. So yeah, that's the situation that we're in. We're in a world where we're surrounded by very unfortunate person steeped in the mode of ignorance. And the more we can do to bring them to the platform of being surrendered to Krishna, to where may they either die or live, the better. So yeah, I'll continue. After this, the king, very much fatigued, hungry and thirsty, returned to his royal palace. After returning, he took a bath and had an appropriate dinner. Then he took rest and thus became freed from all restlessness. Prabhupada notes some of the meaning behind this. King Puranjana's coming home. King Puranjana's coming home and having an appropriate dinner indicate that a materialistic person must retire from sinful activities and become purified by accepting a spiritual master and hearing from him about the values of life. If one would do this, he would feel completely refreshed, just as one feels after taking a bath. After receiving initiation from a bona fide spiritual master, one must abandon all kinds of sinful activities, namely illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. So okay, we've been hunting and we've come to this point of exhaustion. The material world has just stripped us of our joy in trying to find it in the material world. How to become refreshed? Prabhupada's saying right here in taking in coming home and taking a bath, and that coming home and taking a bath means to retire from sinful activities and take shelter of the spiritual master, to take the instructions seriously, to eventually even take up sincere vows within our life that we're going to chant in a regular format. We're going to compose ourselves in a very responsible way. So yeah, that's a really important point. Prabhupada says later, he says, unless one can become free from the influence of passion and ignorance, he cannot be pacified. And without being pacified, one cannot understand the science of God. So it's actually, it's not living a regulated life and taking shelter of a spiritual master isn't just like a badge of honor that we wear on our sleeve that signifies us as, great devotees. No, it's actually necessary. It's actually necessary to come to the platform of being able to understand the science of God, of being able to understand our relationship with Krishna and do something about it, to really care about that even. And maybe some of you have that experience also when you're in the association of those who aren't practicing, who lead lives filled with intoxication, gambling, illicit sex, meat eating. The conversation doesn't go to the purpose of life and our relationship with God, hardly ever, if at all. Yeah, do you all have that experience also? Like, I mean, it's tragic. It's tragic. I have some stories that I did, but they're a little too public on the webcam. But yeah, it's very tragic to be nearing the end of your life, which ultimately all of us are, but especially one who is in a position where they know whether they have a disease or something like that, and they know that they only have a short amount of time to do something valuable with their life, and we're talking politics. It's really unfortunate. So yeah, King Paranjana's returning home is indicative of a man's returning to his original consciousness, known as Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is absolutely necessary for one who has committed a lot of sinful activities, especially killing animals or hunting in the forest. I've killed a lot of animals in this life. I'm not proud of it, but I was like a meat and potatoes type of child, and yeah, so there's a lot of that I also need Krishna consciousness to to cleanse that. Next text. After this, King Paranjana decorated his body with suitable ornaments. He smeared scented sandalwood pulp over his body and put on flower garlands. In this way, he became completely refreshed. After this, he began to search out his queen. Prabhupada mentions that these decorations may be compared to knowledge of religion and the self. Through such knowledge, one becomes detached from a materialistic way of life and engages himself in hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and other Vedic literatures. So, yeah, you can judge something by the fruit. And when you binge watch Netflix, the results vary, but they're not generally stoking you up to go out on Harinam, to go out chanting the holy names of the Lord. It tends to be quite the opposite. At least in my experience, personal testimony, you feel very much disconnected from everyone around you, even those in the room with you, and what to speak of apathetic towards anyone outside. You're just a lone soldier suffering in the material world. So yeah, in contrast to that, for one who is decorating themselves with knowledge of religion, with knowledge of the self, through understanding, through scripture, through Srimad-Bhagavatam, through Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada's other Vedic literatures, we can see the benefit of that. We can experience that, the positive outcome from engaging ourselves in that way. But it takes, it's a conscious thing. It's not that you're just born with the Vedic literatures as ornaments in your heart, and in this case on your body. It's something that that many people claim. If you go out on books, and especially you meet someone from Indian descent, and oh yes, I know Bhagavad Gita. I have. but then when you actually talk to them, no, their auntie has, their grandma has an old dusty copy up on the mantle way back in India, nowhere near their their sense gratification here in the West. And you see what they're ornamenting themselves with. It's not they're ornamenting themselves with Vedic culture. They're ornamenting themselves with Levi jeans, or whatever, different Abercrombie. The bigger the logo, the better. It's like it's unfortunate. So yeah, one cannot return to Krishna consciousness unless he is favored by the instructions of a saintly person. That being something that's necessary. We were talking last night how being chastised as a materialist is the most devastating experience you can face. But as a devotee, being instructed, being corrected is very pleasant, if not at first, the benefit is. And through practice, through humility, you learn to expose yourself to that more and more. Kishore Prabhu just started a morning, Monday through Friday morning japa session with the devotees, and he had asked me this morning if I had any notes for him, like how I thought it might be better, which is it really takes to do that. It takes a level of humility, because you're identifying that, well, it could be better, and even if you don't know that it could, you're open to the possibility that it could. So it's a rare gem. Prabhupada says, therefore, Srila Narottam Das Thakur sings, Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya Jijete Karya Aikya. If we want to become saintly persons, or if we want to return to our original consciousness, we must associate with a sadhu, which means a saintly person. Shastra, which means authoritative Vedic literature, and a guru, which means a bona fide spiritual master. This is the process. So Prabhupada, it's very clear. Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Next text, after taking his dinner and having his thirst and hunger satisfied, King Puranjana felt some joy within his heart. Instead of being elevated to a higher consciousness, he became captivated by Cupid and was moved by a desire to find his wife, who kept him satisfied in household life. Prabhupada touches in the purport upon, in terms of habits, Prabhupada says, when a person is initiated by a spiritual master, he changes his habits and does not eat undesirable eatables and engage in the eating of meat, the drinking of liquor, illicit sex, or gambling. And then he goes on to talk about different types of foodstuffs in modes of nature. He says, Satvika Ahara, he says, foodstuffs in the mode of goodness are described in the Shastras as wheat, rice, fruits, milk, sugar, and milk products. He says simple food like rice, dal, chapatis, vegetables, milk, and sugar constitute a balanced diet. But sometimes it is found that an initiated person, in the name of prasad, eats luxurious foodstuffs. So even honoring Prasadam, Prabhupada's warning us. He's saying, due to his past sinful life, he becomes attracted by Cupid and eats food voraciously. He says it is clearly visible that when a neophyte in Krishna consciousness eats too much, he falls down. Mm-hmm. So even being on on the royal road, as it was described yesterday. There are accidents even on the royal road. So here we are. We're honoring Prasadam. We're chanting Hare Krishna. We're following the rules and regulations as best we can, and yet even in that, like we have to adjust. We have to be careful. We have to know that like maybe 2 plates is enough. Maybe not 5. If we are going to make a mountain of halava on our plate, maybe it's a small little butte, a little cliff, rather than a Himalayan mountain. You know, and that also takes humility. That also takes being honest with oneself in terms of what's conducive for our Krishna consciousness. If we're finding that that after every meal we have to take a nap, it's probably a good indication that our diet, it could be adjusted, could be a little better, or either what we're eating, or like Prabhupada's saying here, how much, because the result of that ends up being lower modes. It ends up being mode of passion, mode of ignorance. It ends up leading us down a path that we may not have intended and isn't conducive for us. So it takes a little bit of planning. It takes a little bit of conscious application for us to assess those more subtle points, but they have wonderful long-term benefits. Prabhupada says the so-called brahmachari becomes agitated by women, and the vanapras may again become captivated. The vanapras being one who's retired from household life. He says, may again become captivated into having sex with his wife, and he may begin to search out another wife. Due to some sentiment, he may give up his own wife and come into the association of devotees and a spiritual master, but due to his past sinful life, he cannot stay. So it's not a small thing, our conditioning, but it can become very small if we take shelter completely. It's described that you can visualize it as an ocean of that we would need to cross of our material ambitions, our material conditioning. But by taking complete shelter of Krishna, it becomes very small. It's described the size of the hoof print of a calf, like the marking it would make in the ground if you were to put water in that. Just very easy to cross. So, yeah. Prabhupada mentions how achihara, which means over-collecting, that to do that, to collect, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of endeavor. And superficially, one may show himself to be very much faithful to the rules and regulations, but at the same time, not be fixed in the regulative principles. And Prabhupada says this is called niyamagraha. He says by mixing with undesirable persons, also known as janasanga, one becomes tainted with lust and greed and falls down from the path of devotional service. So, yeah, we end up hanging out with the wrong people, old friends that we used to drink with, and you're hanging out and drink, oh, maybe I'll just have one drink, maybe I'll smoke, just things like, it just escalates very fast. And the final text we want to cover, text 14. At that time, King Puranjana was a little anxious, and he inquired from the household women, "My dear beautiful women, are you and your mistress all very happy like before, or not?" Prabhupada notes, when a man becomes refreshed by the association of devotees and awakes to Krishna consciousness, he consults the activities of the mind, namely thinking, feeling, and willing, and decides whether he should return to his material activities or stay steady in spiritual consciousness. So it can be commonplace for us to slip into this conception that once we start practicing Krishna consciousness, we've taken the red pill and we're getting out of the matrix. Like we're out, basically. We've already got our neo powers, and like we're just gonna be flying through the sky and all of a sudden, and there's no going back. But Prabhupada's addressing right here in the purport that the fact that that's not the case, that on our Krishna conscious path, yes, we come to experience the satisfaction and peace that comes through Krishna consciousness, but then our mind, friend of none, it doubles back and considers, well, how were things though, really? Like, how was that being engrossed in all kinds of great things, like barbecues and drinking beer, floating down a river, just things that like the mind starts to try to counterbalance in ways that we should be aware of as devotees. We should be aware that this is going to come up, because otherwise it does come up and we identify with that. We identify with that as with our material culture over our spiritual culture. We take that as being something more inherent. Jai Jagannath had mentioned some weeks back, he was mentioning if we're, in terms of identifying with our conditioning, and how if we're honest, like our conditioning is pretty dark. Like it's least for most of us, myself included. So Prabhupada notes that a sane man should consult his mind, its thinking, feeling, and willing, and decide how these processes should be utilized. So being intelligently assessing ourself and our situation and our thinking, feeling, and willing, Prabhupada uses. We should make Prabhupada says deliberate spiritual intelligence. We should utilize our intelligence deliberately in a spiritual way. And Prabhupada notes, if one always thinks of Krishna, feels how to serve him, and wills to execute the order of Krishna, it should be known that he has taken good instructions from his intelligence, which is called his mother. Hadn't heard that in any other place, but the intelligence is the mother, Prabhu's. So, yeah, something to meditate on. Those were the main points that I wanted to cover. I wanted to welcome all of you, or you online, if you have any questions or comments, you wanted to contribute something to the conversation.
Just this last part, just to clarify about the mother. It's just that. Sorry, I missed the last bit of information there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, wait, we're talking about that the intelligence is actually the wife, and can you correct that, or let me know? No.
This isn't attached yet. No, I can't. Did you have any other questions? No. Yeah, I didn't look to see if Prabhupada had used that anywhere else. I'm not sure if anyone else has insights. The way
It is a feminine quality named by Krishna in the Gita, that one of the qualities of women is comfort. In the Gita, Krishna mentions the qualities of women, and intelligence is one of them.
Okay. Word.
So it's considered feminine, even in the masculine.
Okay.
And I believe it's because the mind proposes and the intelligence is following the proposal of the mind.
Right.
So that the intelligence is a servant of the mind in that sense. And so it has a feminine disposition. But then it also has that dynamic of just like in a good relationship. It's really the woman that runs the show. So we hear that the intelligence should really be dictating to the mind what is best to want and to go for. But the external dynamic is that the mind is picking and then the intelligence is serving what has been picked, how to get that. So I want some food. I have to go downstairs. I have to open the fridge. I have to take something out. I have to cook it. All those steps in between me and the food are dependent on my intelligence. And it's the mind that says, I want some food. But I depend on my intelligence to get me there. So the husband wants something, but he depends on the wife, or the child depends on the mom. The child is saying what we want, but the mom is saying.
Nice. Did that help, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had something,
Yeah, please.
it's a whole discussion that I liked a lot, and it reminded me of this very striking statement in the 4th chapter, text 39. Prabhupada says, I'm picking up a purport here. This faith is attained by the discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
which cleanses one's heart of all material dirt. Now this is the striking part. Over and above this, meaning over and above, more important than the chanting Hare Krishna, one should control the senses. And so that your whole discussion, I felt, was really emphasizing this point that we have to come to the place of controlling our senses. Otherwise, our hard work is going to be undone. And it's, over and above chanting Hare Krishna, what could be more important? One should control the senses. That famous bhajan, Parama Karuna. We also hear Vishaya Chadiya Se Rase Majiya, that you'll get this taste for chanting once you give up sense gratification. And that's the only qualification that we have. That's the effort we have to make on our side, and then the chanting is able to do the rest.
Nice.
Thank you. Go around.
Anyone else? Prabhu, please.
There's 2 things.
You okay?
Sorry. Thank you, Prabhu, for awesome. I wanted to ask about, in regards to controlling the senses. I've heard many times that simply add Krishna to your life in terms of major senses and emotional activities, and the really helps control the senses. So my question is in terms of like maybe at home deity worship. I want to know like how doing that on a regular basis helps engage the senses properly. Not everybody has the ability to come to the temple in the morning for Mangalarti, So doing that and how that'll help in in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. So, yeah, even just on a practical level, I mean, if you think about all of the steps that go into deity worship, there's so many levels of control. You're rising at a certain time. You're even if you're not consciously placing your mind there, you're placing your body there. You're going and picking flowers for Krishna. You're cooking for Krishna. You're engaging in such a way that is controlling your senses on some level, and then through the we need a strip or something. but through that, with our heart is meant to take it that much deeper, or through applying our different senses in service of Krishna, then we actually, it's not like we were talking over the weekend in terms of enthusiasm and having it actually be something that we look forward to. We actually we see it as an opportunity. I don't know if that encapsulates. Maybe someone else would like to add to that. Yeah.
Well, it is mentioned pretty often of the importance of Jiva worship in relationship to controlling the senses, particularly sex desire, or lust, in a more broad term. And the any kind of regulated activity that is favorable for Krishna consciousness is very powerful for controlling the senses. I find it in my experience. So it says when you're able to start doing something regularly, whether it's reading or chanting, anything of that nature, it starts to kind of stick in the mind, and then you become attached to such kinds of activities. Like I was appreciating that verse where he says, when he starts to question, what was that verse? He goes and he questions the ladies in the house, and he's saying, "Are you happy? Are you satisfied?"
Yeah.
And saying that he's questioning the activities of the mind as he's becoming Krishna conscious. But there's still that choice whether to accept the invitations of the mind or to reject them. And so something that I think about that I'm trying to implement is kind of getting that kind of momentum in Krishna consciousness that kind of pushes you above the invitations of the mind. Because the mind is very consistent. It's very predictable.
Right.
And so we have to match that in our sadhana, essentially. So if we're not able to match the same consistency of the mind, then eventually we will be defeated, which is always very frustrating, but that's the way it is. So I just think for me personally, having some kind of regulated practice in association with devotees, particularly, I find that doing things alone isn't as powerful as doing something other devotees, and that helps to purify the mind. So, I really like that verse that was mentioned. Yeah.
Nice. Anyone else?
I'm not going to be able to find it right at the moment, but there's two places that the Harinam verse comes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, famous, the only way is chanting. And ironically, the one doesn't have a purport, and then the purport that Prabhupada gives in the second reference is almost 3/4 emphasizing deity worship. So there's a relationship there, and Prabhupada points out that yes, the holy name is sufficient At the same time, especially in Kali Yuga, given the circumstance that the lack of good habits the living entities find themselves in, as you pointed out, if you're really worshiping a deity, then you have to keep yourself to a certain standard to be able to do that, and that standard is more or less the mode of goodness, and from that place then the chanting can have its effect.
Yep. Does that help, Prabhu?
Really helps.
Okay.
If I may,
Yeah.
that's okay. I wanted to ask a question for the clarification of choosing intelligence over the mind. You might have thoughts, ideas, things that thinking, feeling, and willing. And one measure that I can kind of think of is, is it using Guru Shastra and Sangha in terms of making a decision. If we're, to make sure we don't follow the mind and follow intelligence instead.
Yeah, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra.
Guru Shastra, Sadhu, and Shastra. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking, if you know of any verses or any instruction about how to easily follow the mind, but that's what I can think of right now.
Do you all know any
How to easily follow the mind.
shlokas?
Right. And instead of
It all says it's very hard. The mind's
Yeah,
follow the intelligence.
like
following
Arjuna.
intelligence.
What does he say? It's more difficult than controlling the wind.
You meant intelligence.
Yes, I meant intelligence.
Oh, okay.
Well, in relationship to deity worship, man, and we can, in relationship to deity worship in the second canto, it said that each limb of the Lord, the deeper you meditate on each limb of the Lord successively in taking darshan, so beginning at the lotus feet and then moving up eventually to Krishna's face, the deeper that you meditate on each limb, the more your intelligence becomes purified.
Nice.
And so Prabhupada speaks there about not being lazy and taking darshan, actually coming before Krishna, offering prayers, taking the time to notice the details of his lotus feet, of his ankles, his thighs, his chest, etc., and eventually coming to his face. And if that is the process by which one takes darshan, then that the degree to which you're intensely doing that is the degree to which your intelligence is being purified by that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Laura. Dr. Reed, you want to add something? Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gauda Premanande.